welcome back. This time I'm doing a video from my sister's house and it's Halloween time. So a couple of friends are joining us. This here's Mr. Bartender and here are some creepy guys in the background. So it's Halloween season, as you can see. So a lot of parents are asking, there's decorations everywhere, trick or treat is in the dark, there's haunted houses, there's dropping the kids off at parties. What's keeping them reasonably safe versus inadvertently increasing anxiety by sanctioning and encouraging avoidance? That's hard to figure out sometimes, especially because anxious parents who share genes with anxious kids also often have the two hallmarks of anxiety. Number one, perceiving danger when there isn't any. For example, how likely is it that your kid's Halloween candy is going to be poisoned by the neighbor down the street? Or number two, if there is some amount of danger, catastrophizing the harm, even when there's a reasonable amount. Some parents are like, a reasonable amount of harm? Isn't it my top priority as a parent to keep my kid protected from harm? And what we talk about a lot in these videos is it's not the danger often that parents are protecting their kids from. It's the kid's emotion that the parents are protecting their kids from. And sometimes for highly sensitive parents, that emotion dysregulates the parents. And the parent might think, also, as a good parent, isn't it my priority to keep my kid not upset? And to that, I would say no. The priority of a parent is to prepare the child to be equipped to have a full and rewarding and engaging life in this messy, sticky, real world. And that means the anxious child obviously needs to be able and willing to feel the feelings associated with incurring any risks that are necessary to have a fulfilling and rewarding life. Some risk needs to be accepted. No conversation about emotional experiential avoidance could be complete without acknowledging that there are lots of feelings that anxious kids avoid that aren't on the surface considered fear. Feelings like powerlessness, uncertainty, even boredom or downtime restlessness can be dysregulating. Another thing that's very commonly dysregulating is exposure to any kind of uncertainty or risk or a scenario where they don't have control. So other attempts at avoidance might be, instead of sitting with those feelings, they reactively go to anger. A lot of very anxious kids have moments of anger and defiance. Of course, you can't make a child not feel that anger. It's automatic. But you know as the parent that that's a form of avoiding something underneath. One other form of sanctioning avoidance that you might not see on the surface is when you do something for your child that they can do themselves, or that's completely developmentally appropriate for them to do themselves. Take for granted that whether it's a separation anxiety or whether it's a perfectionism or anything else, there's a feeling inside that child is avoiding, and you engaging in the behavior, like you falling asleep with the child. Sometimes children will want their parents to wipe them after they use the bathroom. You ordering the child's food for them instead of them ordering at the restaurant, things like that. Just be aware that the anger, refusal, obstinance, and also dependence, wanting the parent to do something for them, are also examples of experiential avoidance. The other thing that I would say is a priority for parents is to offer opportunities for the child to develop appropriately. Obviously, we've been talking about offering the child opportunities to develop emotional regulation, but also many general social, cognitive, even physical developmental benchmarks require exposure to risk and uncertainty. And it is the parent's job to allow this development to play out. So if you're on board that it is actually your job as a parent to not shield the child from experiencing potential danger, and especially the feelings associated with potential danger, then you're halfway there. Now that you've accepted that, you and your spouse or your co-parenting partner just have to figure out what is a reasonable amount of risk to incur and what is reasonable to protect the child from. Like I said, also discuss this with your spouse and be very specific. In fact, as my husband and I were raising boys, we often had this discussion when they were climbing on the jungle gym, if they were going to go out for a sport that's known for concussions. How much is reasonable to intervene and protect? And what we decided on is we're willing to incur broken arms in the name of physical, emotional, and social development. What we're not willing to incur is a serious head injury if the likelihood is high. And what we're not willing to incur is a permanent eye injury if the protective eye gear is easy to wear. We would have those sticky conversations. The other thing that you and your co-parenting partner would be good to consider before you restrict a child from doing something that you might deem too high of a risk, ask yourself, is there a way that we can prepare this kid for this risk instead of restricting the kid from entering into the risky situation? For example, kids that ride the subway in the city, there's a book about this where the parent actually prepared the child for all the different situations, role played, everything like that, and the child did fine. That's an extreme example, but things like cooking. Instead of avoiding using a knife, could you wait till the child has certain level of motor skill, but teach them how to hold it, how to think before you cut, where to place your fingers? If they're an older anxious child, could you spend some time with them in the pool, teaching them how they can float if they get tired? Could you teach them about tricky strangers and about road safety instead of depriving older children from the opportunity of walking to and from school? Could you teach them which snakes are dangerous and which snakes aren't, instead of tacitly trying to avoid all snakes? Consider if avoidance could be depriving them of learning how to better navigate this messy world. Another consideration when deciding whether or not it's appropriate to allow a child to avoid something, besides just depriving them of a developmental opportunity, is how enjoyable, how enriching to the child's life would this opportunity be? Something like trick-or-treating with a couple friends, you might know very well that this would be the time of the kid's life. And now that you know a lot more about avoidance, I'm gonna give you guys plenty of other videos that walk you through a systematic and gradual way of taking away your accommodation of the avoidance behaviors. And I don't think out the gate you should get in some power struggle and try to make your kid go trick-or-treating. For this video, I'm just planting seeds for you as the parent to be thinking about some things that are actually problematic avoidance, which you might have been thinking of as appropriately protecting a child. My next video is actually going to be encouraging you to not take away any of the accommodation behaviors, accommodating the child's avoidance, until you have trained yourself to offer up tons of support and tons of confidence in your child's ability to tolerate their own distress. I'm going to talk a lot more about that in the next video. For now, I'm just going to tell you, like, for example, with the anger, you can't make your child not feel angry. But what you can start doing is you staying calm and you saying to them some supportive statements, validating their emotion. I know you feel powerless and I know it feels rotten. Also, honey, I know with everything in me, you can feel that rotten, horrible, tight feeling and still use your polite tone of voice. That's a little preview. You support the emotion and then you give your child a statement of confidence that they can handle that emotion. I hope this gave you something more to think about. Have a good one.